It was a game of rookie heroics. Spencer Rattler and Charlie Smyth bring home the New Orleans Saints preseason debut win. We got all that and a little bit of lanyap for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net, which is set to release soon. And you can also find me over as the Saints analyst on WWL TV. We appreciate you very much for being here for a live post-game episode for the New Orleans Saints. They are winning in the preseason again. It's so fun. We're going to break down everything that we learned from today's preseason game. We'll go over some of the things that looked great, some of the things that didn't look so great, the offensive line, and we'll dive into some of the other standout players as well. We're mostly going to focus on positivity here because it is the preseason. So let's go with the things that worked first, and the things that worked right off the bat, of course, that we'll dive into. We'll get there in just a sec, but we're going to take a look at Willie Gay, who was a big-time standout, as well as some other standout players at the end of today's show. We'll dive into the offensive line as well, which did not do a lot to instill a little bit of any confidence. I don't know about you, but it didn't instill any confidence in me. And we're going to lead everything off with Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener, Charlie Smyth, in particular, the rookie heroics of Rattler and Smith that ended up winning this game for the New Orleans Saints. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. They want to help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free today at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, Spencer Rattler. How do you do, my friend? My goodness, what a wonderful drive from him at the end of the game. And that's where I want to start. Start at the end of the game. You don't need a recap. New Orleans Saints win this one 16-14. But here's how they got it done. And this is what I think is the most important thing. And look, we're going to talk Jake Haener too, because Jake Haener had a really nice showing as well. But I want to focus on what won this game. And that was the mind, the decision-making, all of that of Spencer Rattler. Remember, this kid's a rookie, right? Forget what you know about Spencer Rattler, what you think about Spencer Rattler, anything like that. He is a rookie quarterback in the NFL. And in his first ever NFL action, he gets 1 minute and 50 seconds to drive down the field and try to win the game for the New Orleans Saints. And did he do more than try? He ends up getting them there in range for a 37-yard field goal. This was after not an 18-play drive, but after a late drive in the game to get them to this point to where they were able to get that field goal off. And that's a game winner for you. Here's some of the things that Spencer Rattler did that I really liked. And here's some of the things that the young players as a whole did that I really liked. First of all, they got the ball quickly back to the refs and the officials after every single play. So every time that they got out of bounds, every time that they were tackled in bounds, they went immediately to the officials, got the ball in their hand. That's a really smart thing for some of these young players to kind of show you. Then you also saw the opportunity here to where Spencer Rattler ends up connecting on a quick pass to the outside, and then eventually throws a beautiful back shoulder throw to Samson Nacua, who just keeps standing out. He's been somebody that's been pretty impressive all throughout training camp as well. This drive, by the way, was a 12-play, 56-yard drive that culminated in Charlie Smyth's field goal. We'll get to Charlie Smyth here in just a moment. But just I like the word that somebody used here in the chat, divine throw to the back shoulder for Samson Nacua. Really good adjustment by Samson Nacua as well. Let's give him his flowers on that really nice catch. We're going to discuss him a little bit more in a little bit. But I like the decision-making. I like the calm, the composure, the poise that we saw from Spencer Rattler being in this situation for his first NFL action. And I get it. It's the preseason. He's going against the third team. He's going against guys that are going to be car salesmen at some point. I understand all that. I get it. But what we're really looking at here is how did Spencer Rattler perform? And I thought that he was remarkably impressive on that drive. He did get a little bit of help, and the Saints offense as a whole got a little bit of help with a couple of an offsides penalty and a neutral zone infraction by the Cardinals defensive line. But hey, not everybody can be as composed as Spencer Rattler in that situation. But kudos to the New Orleans Saints as a whole. They had a lot of those false start penalties early on. All that went away in this game-winning drive. And remember, the Saints have really focused on this model over the course of the last couple of weeks. End of half drives, end of game drives with 48 seconds left on the clock, with 1:40 seconds left on the clock. They prepared their players perfectly for this very situation. And what a great opportunity for this team to get an end of half drive that was led by Jake Haener to get in the field goal range, and then an end of the game drive by Spencer Rattler to get in the field goal range for the win. Great to see that in the preseason. I get it. I understand it's just a preseason. Don't get me wrong, but it's good to see that for these young guys, and especially knowing how much the New Orleans Saints prepared for exactly those two situations, and they got them in this first preseason game. So really, really nice stuff there. I thought that Spencer Rattler also looked really good in the first drive up against, or when he came in the second half. There was something in that last half that I think he wants back, though, in that last drive. And that was a play to where he didn't get everybody out of the huddle, didn't get everybody out to the line as quickly as maybe he would have liked, ended up having to burn the third timeout in that situation. Not ideal there with 11 seconds left on the clock. Would have given you an opportunity to go back to the middle of the field, get a little bit closer, take the timeout, all that other stuff. But it ended up being fine. He ended up throwing a fade over to the right side towards the sideline. Samson Nacua thought it was going up the field. Good decision by Spencer Rattler to go towards the out of bounds boundary there and then give Charlie Smyth the opportunity to come out and drill this field goal. Now let's talk about Charlie Smyth. I don't want to completely gloss over Spencer Rattler's rushing touchdown at the earlier part, so I'll give a quick mention of that too. But let's discuss Charlie Smyth here for a moment, okay? Really, really understand this. International Player Program has been kicking a football for maybe a couple of years. Didn't play in college. Has no NFL experience, obviously, all that. Comes in, has a 37-yard field goal as his first ever American football kick, right? He had a kickoff earlier, but first ever American football field goal. Comes in with 37 seconds, or with a 37-yard field goal, and has Jonathan Gannon on the other side call a timeout. He gets iced. Okay, so he's never had to kick in this. He's never kicked in the NFL before. He's never had to kick a game winner in the NFL before. He's never kicked in American football before in an actual live game, and has never been iced before in that situation. And what does he do? He just drills it. Excellent stuff. We talk about composure. My understanding is that when the Saints players got back to the locker room, Charlie Smyth, an international player that came in from Ireland, the locker room was blaring U2, an Irish band, of course, band from Ireland, Bono from Ireland, all that stuff. What a way to celebrate a guy, right? Really, really cool stuff there. I quickly want to discuss, too, Jake Haener. Jake Haener at the end of the first half, really nice drive, big 58-yard completion down the field, an arm that I did not know that Jake Haener had. I don't know if he can do that consistently, but if he can do that consistently, I take back my arm strength criticisms. But great pass down the left sideline. Maybe could have left it infield a little bit more to give A.T. Perry the opportunity to catch and run that one into the end zone, but still big connection between he and A.T. Perry down the left sideline. But obviously the story here was Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, and Charlie Smyth, their end-of-game heroics, and I'll throw Samson Nacua in there as well. The other big story is what didn't go well, and that was the first-team offense, and in particular, the first-team offensive line and its right tackle. Let's get to that here as we continue on with this live episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is the same formula that keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to level your car up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, exhaust kits, whatever it is that you need, whether you're into speed, power, or style, you're going to be able to find it at eBay Motors. With over 122 parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, that part is guaranteed to fit your ride the first time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices that you want, you'll be able to level your car up to MVP performance and bring home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and eBay guaranteed fit available only to U.S. customers. All right, family. While we got a lot of optimism from the second and third string quarterbacks and some of their offense, we didn't really get to glean a lot of optimism from the first team quarterback and first team offense. So let's break down maybe the biggest concern coming out of this game, which is still the offensive line. We appreciate you very much for joining us here for another episode of Locked On Saints, whether you're live or you're catching the show later. Hope you enjoyed the preseason game. Hope that you enjoy our wrap up here. Just a reminder, we're here every single Monday through Friday. And then as you can see today, and then some, to give you all the biggest stories from around the New Orleans Saints. Make sure you also go check out Locked On Fantasy Football so you can get all of the information you need to be the best fantasy football player in your league. You know you want it. Go and check out Locked On Fantasy Football today. All right. So for the New Orleans Saints, I would have to say that the biggest concern coming out of this game is still the offensive line. If I'm wrong, tell me. But I feel like the offensive line is still very much the biggest concern. We got to see a lot of starters go out there today. Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave got some run. Guys like Foster Morrow, Dallin Holker played late into. Actually, I'm going to add Dallin Holker to my standout list because I thought that he was a lot of fun to watch tonight. But on the offensive line, which had all five of its presumed starters. So just to recap that, Taliesin Fuanga at left tackle, Lucas Patrick at left guard, center Eric McCoy, right guard Cesar Ruiz, and then Trevor Penning at right tackle. The New Orleans Saints offensive line did not get off to a good start. And it was going up against a little bit of depth over on that Arizona Cardinals defensive line. So not the greatest sign there. And in particular, the player that struggled after having a poor performance on Thursday, the team's last practice before their preseason game, was again Trevor Penning. Darius Robinson beating him on the inside with that classic speed move to the inside shoulder, which I have never seen Trevor Penning get any better at countering. It was a concern when we looked at him in terms of his draft profile all the way back before he was drafted. It was an issue his rookie year, it was an issue his second year, and it looks like it's an issue again here in 2024. So not a great start for Trevor Penning, not a great start for the New Orleans Saints offensive line as a whole, which also got beat in other places. The depth got challenged. We saw a lot of pre-snap penalties, 7 penalties just outside the first half in this game. 3 of them on the offensive line, including holding, false starts, things like that. Just not the optimism that you would want to take away from this game situation. So I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to sit here and build on this over and over and over again and beat a dead horse with the fact that the Saints offensive line is still a concern. The Saints won this game. I want it to feel like the Saints won this game. I want you to feel the good things that came from this game. I'm not going to beat a dead horse and beat you over the head with the fact that, hey, the offensive line is still very much a concern, but we have to address the fact that it is very much still a concern, in particular over at the right tackle spot. I got a lot of questions over the course of this game. What can the Saints do here? They've got 3 options. Their first option is to wait it out, keep running with Trevor Penning, be patient with him, see what John Benton, the New Orleans Saints new offensive line coach, can do with him that maybe former offensive line coach Doug Marrone couldn't do with him, and then rely on the scheme a little bit, which the Saints did not run a lot of their scheme. There was not a lot of pre-snap motion. There was not a lot of play action in this game either, although a couple of the big hookups came from the play action, so you can see the value there. But they ran a very dressed down, a very sort of what would you call it, stripped down version of their offense. So you could sit there and cross your fingers and hope that things are just going to get better, or you can snap into action. I'm getting closer and closer by the hour to the snap into action kind of idea. So here is the other thing that they can do. They can go to a different right tackle. They've got guys on the roster like Landon Young. They've got a guy on the roster like Ali Udoh, who has been playing on the interior, which is not where Ali Udoh, in my opinion, should be playing. He struggled there during his time in Minnesota. He was a better right tackle, or a better tackle, than he was a guard. And we saw that today. He got flagged for holding and a false start on back-to-back plays. Get him out of the interior, get him back over onto the right side, or trust Landon Young to be there. But I understand the reason why they're not going to jump immediately to Landon Young being there. And I'll explain to you why really quick. They love the versatility that he brings. He can play either side of the line at tackle. He can also move inside at guard. I get it. I get the James Hurst's, Sinio Kelemete of it all, right? Former guys that have been on this team that were massively valuable because of their versatility over on the offensive line. So that's option 2, is that they turn to somebody in the building. Option 3, you hit the market as best as you can, which you might not really be able to do until roster cuts are made after the 3rd preseason game. If somebody gets cut after that 3rd preseason game and you feel really good that you could potentially bring them in and at least have them challenge at that right tackle spot, I think you might consider it. Now, it's tough because you're also trying to build your 53-man roster. Can you make room and sacrifice somebody or the potential of somebody in order to bring that guy there? There's a team building, roster management kind of impact there that affects more than one thing. Keep an extra offensive lineman, then where do you keep one fewer guy, stuff like that. It's a little bit challenging to build all that out, but there is definitely a way to do that. Reed Whaley with a good suggestion here. A guy like Tyron Smith, he's older, but he's good. You know what I mean? So like, can you find a way to get a guy? I think people would also mention like David Bakhtiari, even though he has been Tyron Smith, I think, is now with the Jets, if I remember correctly. But a guy like David Bakhtiari gives you the opportunity to bring somebody in. I know he's been a career left tackle, but he's a veteran guy. You have to worry about injury history with him, but would you rather deal with the injury history or would you rather deal with a lack of performance at the position? And I think right now you're seeing a glaring lack of performance. And I don't know if you can deal with that. So I imagine that the Saints, being who they are going to be patient with Trevor Penning, but I don't know if they're going to be patient all the way up to week 1. You know what I mean? If Trevor Penning goes out there and struggles against the San Francisco 49ers next week, who have a much better, much deeper, their pass rush is like, it's not as deep as it used to be. At the top, though, it's really, really, really talented. Remember, the team has these joint practices against the 49ers. So you're going to see Nick Bosa versus Trevor Penning. And how do you deal with that if you're the New Orleans Saints, all that. So I think that like that's going to be the thing. So I look at those 3 ways for the Saints to potentially address that right tackle spot. I don't think any of them are ideal, right? The ideal situation is that you're not in this situation in the first place. And so you already have to eschew that, right? Nothing is going to be ideal from this point forward. You just kind of have to figure out what's going to be the best option there. I did enjoy Taliese Fuanga's performance tonight. The rookie left tackle looked pretty good, had some nice reps. They gave both him and Trevor Penning more reps than the entire starting offensive line. So the entire starting offensive line played together for the first two series. And then Lucas Patrick moved inside to center, and then you saw Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz leave the field, but then the 2 tackles stayed for about just over 20 snaps each. I thought that was smart by the New Orleans Saints to get a look at all that and be able to see it. So I think that the Saints, here's the way that here's kind of my final thought on it. Because again, I don't want to beat this over the head because you deserve to hear about the fact that the team won, not the fact that like there is an issue on the offensive line. So I'm trying to get through this, but here's kind of my bottom line of it all, which matches what I said to open the segment here. But what the Saints need to be ready for is the conversation to make a change at right tackle, lickety split, right? They need to be ready to do that. Lickety split, so they got to figure that part out. It's not that they need to make the change right now. They can give him another preseason game. They can give him 2 more preseason games if they want to, but they got to be ready for an alternative quickly. So I'm just going to say it this way. I'm not going to be surprised that the Saints bring in or try out some other offensive tackles. It's just not going to be surprising if we see that here in Irvine sometime this week. So that's the way that I'm looking at it. That's where it is. I'm done talking about the offensive line. You don't have to hear it anymore, but it was an important thing that I wanted to make sure that we broke down. Next, let's go back to the players that stood out, including linebacker Willie Gay, who might be one of the most underrated additions in free agency this offseason. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs wants to help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just some random job board. All right. I used to use LinkedIn all the time. I haven't in a while. I'm not hiring and I'm not looking for a job, thankfully. But when I did, LinkedIn was my go-to. We used to use LinkedIn all the time when I was working in theater as well, trying to hire people from all over the place. You want a big worldwide, nationwide network of people looking for work. LinkedIn is the place to go. It's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring, and 86% of those small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours of posting their job. So it's plain and simple. If you're not using LinkedIn, then you're looking in the wrong place when it comes to hiring. LinkedIn has been awesome for me. I think it can be awesome for you as well. So go and check them out today. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp Therapy Online has been awesome for me. I'm very open about therapy and mental health and all of those other things. And BetterHelp is one of the big reasons why, because it's kind of helped to destigmatize some stuff for me. And it's kind of allowed me to be able to make something like therapy a bit of a non-negotiable for myself. So maybe you're somebody that like doesn't skip a gym day, or you like to cook or something like that. All of that is absolutely great. For me, my non-negotiable is therapy. I never miss a session, and it makes it really easy. BetterHelp does, to make sure that I never miss that session by giving me the opportunity to visit online, video calls, chats, phone calls, all of that. It's designed to be convenient and suited to your schedule because it's entirely online. So look, never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. It was Willie Gay and a few others that were big-time standouts for the New Orleans Saints. There were a couple of players here who had a really solid game outside of the obvious guys, right? Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener, Charlie Smyth, all that. So I want to just highlight a couple of these guys that I thought were really impressive. And then maybe later on, we'll dive into some of the guys that need to show some more. But I'm going to wait and watch like the joint practices and all that stuff, and then figure all that out at a later time. So here are the players that stood out for me. Let's get to that. We appreciate you very much. Don't forget, we are your team every day. We will have another episode getting you ready for Monday's practice. We will have a live episode tomorrow evening as well, because the Saints do practice Sunday afternoon. So we'll have a live show tomorrow, and then we're back to 2-a-days, Monday, Tuesday, and on. Just a heads up for you there. All right. So I want to start with Willie Gay. Willie Gay has looked excellent all throughout training camp, and he replicated that performance on the field up against the Arizona Cardinals. There was one play in particular, it was like a 4-yard tackle for a loss that I just absolutely loved. He's standing, I believe it was in the B gap. So that's the gap between the guard and the guard and the tackle over on the offensive side. And he's kind of peeking before the ball is snapped, threatening a little bit. And then once the ball is snapped, he just shoots that gap and immediately makes contact with the running back in the backfield. You could see the instincts. You could see the speed. You watched him also close in on an outside run at one point, close in on a swing pass at another point, get into the backfield at other points. He was just one of those guys that was super, super impressive throughout the broadcast, which was an awful broadcast, by the way. The national broadcast that they used, terrible. But when they looked at him, they were talking about how, like, standing next to him pregame, he's built like a defensive tackle. I don't think that that's true, but he's definitely built like a defensive end. The issue for opposing offenses is that he moves like a safety. The dude is fast. He's fast, he's big, he can tackle, he's strong, he's scary, he does all the things that you want from a linebacker. And I think that his addition to Demario Davis and Pete Werner gives the Saints a really, really good linebacker room. Like, I think they have one of the best and one of the deepest cornerback / defensive back rooms. That gets better if they sign Justin Simmons, by the way, which I still think they have a good chance to do. They're just not going to do it anytime soon, and I don't blame them. And I also don't blame Justin Simmons for not signing soon either. Let the preseason kind of get out of the way. You're not going to put me in a preseason game if I'm Justin Simmons. I'm good. I'm not playing. So I don't blame him for that. But a guy like Willie Gay just gives this Saints a really, really strong second level all of a sudden. And look, the Saints second level has been really good since 2018 when they added DeMario Davis, but this might be the best collection of second level players that this team has. Not only them, but we also saw Khaleke Hudson get in the backfield for a sack. The free agent that was added from Washington started 6 games for that team last year. We saw some good things from Anthony Orji again as well. We've seen that all throughout training camp. I'm really digging where the Saints linebacker room is right now. Let's go over to the offensive side real quick. James Robinson, look, didn't have like the biggest day as a running back. I get it. Averaged just under 4 yards per carry. He was at 3.9 yards per carry, 7 rushes for 27 yards. But the thing that I liked about him is that like the legs were always churning. He was always looking for work. He had good vision. He attacked holes well, did things really, really nicely when it came to that. Remember, James Robinson's a former 1,000-yard rusher going all the way back to his undrafted free agent rookie season with Jacksonville. So he's got some talent there. The leading rusher for the team, unsurprisingly, was Jordan Mims, 10 carries for 38 yards. That's 3.8 yards. He had a long of 10. So still no big breakaway runs for this offense. But I just wanted to highlight James Robinson because I thought that he played pretty well. I thought that he played pretty well. I really enjoyed what we saw from him. A.T. Perry, I mentioned him a little bit earlier. He had the big 58-yard catch down the left sideline. Really nice route, got behind the defense over there. I think people forget sometimes that A.T. Perry's fast. You know what I mean? Because he's this big 6'3" dude and everything like that, 200+ pounds, all of that. But, I mean, he still got some speed. He ran a 4.47 at the 40 in his combine at that size. That's still really impressive. And so we got to see a little bit of the long speed today. I thought that he was in good position. He engaged in the stiff arm a little bit early, all right, on the one from Spencer Rattler down the right sideline where the defender got flagged for pass interference. That's a little bit of offense gets the favor in the NFL kind of thing. Maybe Bill Vinovich, who I could not believe, by the way, was actually the lead official. He was the referee on this game. Bill Vinovich, of course, the NOLA no-call guy that didn't throw the flag and whose crew didn't throw the flag and all that. I could not believe he was actually officiating a Saints game. It was because it wasn't in New Orleans. But I think that a big thing that you saw from A.T. Perry, though, was just the physical nature and him showing up in a game situation in a game setting again. I want to see it in practice, but that's me, right? Like, I'm not paid to make decisions for this team. That's probably a good thing because I would probably lead your favorite team to a lot of losses if I was that guy, because I'm not as smart as the guys that do make those decisions. But I think that if you show it in a game, like, coaching staff's going to notice that. And so I think good stuff from A.T. Perry there. Samson Nakua, the recent free agency ad late in training camp because of some of the wide receiver injuries at the position and all that, had that nice back shoulder catch, had some nice other moments as well throughout this training camp that I'm excited about. He had 2 catches for 19 yards. So really, really nice stuff from him too. But I think that back shoulder catch on the closing drive when they were trying to get that game-winning field goal in and everything, just that connection between him and Spencer Rattler was really, really solid. I thought Carl Granderson and Bryan Bresee looked pretty good throughout this game as well. Bryan Bresee had a beautiful spin move on the inside, just didn't finish the play at the quarterback. That's going to be a big thing for this New Orleans Saints pass rush, is that they're getting into the backfield. I mean, you saw Chase Young look really good. You saw Carl Granderson look pretty solid. You saw Nathan Shepard get into the backfield. At one point, Nathan Shepard and Carl Granderson met at Desmond Ridder for a sack. Chase Young had some good pressures and all that too. The one thing that you want to see is just them the ability to finish the play at the quarterback a little bit more. How about Nico Lalos, the reserve defensive end, again shining in the preseason? You got to love that as well. So I thought there was some good stuff in the pass rush and the defensive line as a whole throughout this one. I think that they let up a little bit in the run game on the defensive line, but that was when you got into the third, fourth quarters. You're looking at third or later string guys and stuff like that. Like you take that with a bit of a grain of salt in terms of what that means for your actual projection for the 2024 season. And then finally, Dallin Holker, the undrafted free agent, a tight end who came in out of Colorado State on the opening drive for Spencer Rattler in the second half. He was the one that caught the pass from Spencer Rattler on the play action bootleg, one of the few bells and whistles of this offense that we see, I'm telling you, all the time in training camp. Just they were, again, using that kind of stripped down vanilla version of their offense here. But he caught that one, turned it upfield for another for a bigger gain, 15 yards. And that one had 3 catches for 24 yards. I thought that he looked pretty solid throughout the day here. So really, really good stuff for the New Orleans Saints in this victory. I want to give Monty Rice and Anthony Orji, as well as Khaleke Hudson, like I was saying, like this linebacker room, really, I'm really feeling what they've got going on here. But I want to give those 3 guys shout outs, leading the team in total tackles. Monty Rice with 7, Orji and Hudson with 6 apiece. Willie Gay right there with 5 as well. So that second level balling out. This has been awesome. So I really, really enjoy this. Really, really nice stuff from New Orleans. Still some things to work on. Still some things, as Dennis Allen said in his post-game presser, to clear up and clean up and stuff like that. But I mean, if you wanted some fireworks and some theatrics and some heroics, check. You got all 3 in this game. Appreciate you very much for being here for another episode and for joining us live. A ton of people here. Really, really appreciate you being here. So whether you're catching the show live or you're catching it later, just please know how much I love you. I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy that football's back and we get to do this every single day. I cannot wait. So I appreciate you very much for making us your first listen. Make sure you go and check out Jake Madison over at Locked On Pelicans, Matt Moscona over at Locked On LSU as well. We got more coming up for you tomorrow night when we go live right after New Orleans Saints training camp practice. I appreciate you so much for making us your first, or part of your day, rather, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you find me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing, how you living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.